So if you're anything like me, you probably have enough time dealing with the real things that happen in the political arena, and how really out there they are in a sort of a Twilight Zone way almost, in the United States anyway. And so I don't know about you, but I haven't really been paying much attention to QAnon, and because that's really kind of sort of right out there, and also it's little bits of truth sprinkled there, as whoever's posting on 4chan from QAnon is leaving little breadcrumbs for people, but really it's kind of BS basically what's going on there. But there are some things that are happening with that particular, what looks like, I mean, I've sort of thought it might be some sort of a PSYOPs thing, or a CIA PSYOPs or something like that, and it's possibly connected in some way to the Trump administration, and there's a whole lot of reasons why it probably exists, and I haven't really been paying attention to it because I just sort of feel like it's just going to go along and collect people possibly who have mental illnesses possibly, and also full-on right-wing fascists. And I think actually that's actually possibly what is going to end up becoming the case, that it's actually sort of going to that people are going to coalesce around that particular narrative that is put out by whoever is putting it out. But I'm not going to talk actually about this myself because I don't really know anything about it. But I'm going to post a couple of excerpts from two different people. One is Eric Draitser, who says he doesn't know much about it, but he's been following a particular individual, and so he gives his opinion on it, on QAnon. And the other person is Robbie Martin from Media Roots Radio, has probably done a lot more sort of looking into this to analyze it. He also thinks it's BS. But there's something sort of sinister that's happening around around QAnon, that is going to possibly end up, it's going to be sort of how a fascistic movement, is going to coalesce around whoever has been driving that particular 4chan narrative, QAnon. So I wanted to share these two excerpts because I think that we should actually be concerned about what's possibly going to happen, particularly if Trump doesn't get back into office. And we all know that the polling is very bad because he's done a terrible job with this COVID-19 pandemic. With this pandemic, he's absolutely abandoned, along with the Democratic Party. The duopoly has abandoned the public. There's mass evictions on the horizon. The GDP has gone into the bucket, although Trump's people, there are people who are thriving on that. There's businesses that are going to come out much richer on the other side of this awful sort of economic collapse. But in general, Trump is not going to do very well unless of course there's electoral fraud, or unless of course something happens and he bounces back, or he actually gets his way and puts off the election, which he's trying to do, which is just absolutely, I mean, he's a neo-fascist, what can you say? Or, he just is, and he's trying to hold on to power. Did he come out of the blue? No, he didn't. There's been decades leading up to this. And this is one of the problems with the lesser evil nonsense, voting for the lesser evil. You just end up with two kinds of evil, and they're very much the same, and it's just a sort of a pick between, and one is more crass than the other, but it's all been leading up to a sort of a fascism, basically. And capitalism is inextricably linked with imperialism, and in end-stage capitalism, it just ends up leading into fascism. And when you have a complete debacle, which is what has happened in the US, where people are floundering, there's going to be destitution in the streets. When there's going to be millions and millions, tens of millions of homeless people due to this, pandemic, where are those people going to go, and what's going to happen? Is there going to be some kind of a real civil war, which it seems like Trump seems to be wanting to happen, or is it going to be the case that if Trump loses, that those people who are on the right, who have been religiously in a cult-like manner following Trump, are they going to end up, the QAnon and these alt-righters and the white nationalists all coalesce together, and then it becomes a real fascistic brown shirt type situation, which is already kind of going toward that way. I think we're witnessing in front of us basically the culmination of decades of, and longer, decades and decades of this move towards an end-stage capitalism, and also with that fascism. And that's what I think we're seeing right before us in the United States. It's heading that way in a really serious way. A year ago, I might have just thought it was heading that way slowly, but now with Trump, it's kind of with the empire with the mask taken off, and he doesn't want to leave office, and he's trying to find ways to avoid leaving office, and if that means postponing an election or calling on martial law. He's trying to vilify the left and basically make out as if all these violent, crazy, far-left fascists, he calls them fascists, which is funny, when a lot of these protests are actually quite peaceful. It's actually the instigation by the police, the militarized police, and these federal law enforcement brown shirt types that have been just taking people off the streets. It's actually they who have been causing this violence. And when they pull the federal law enforcement out of, or I think they have pulled them out of Portland, the protests have been quite calm. But that's what Trump wants. He actually wants riots. So then he can say that's why he's clamping down on everything. He's said in his 4th of July speech that he wants to, basically that the left is his enemy, basically. The left in America is his enemy. This is sort of the talk of fascists, that kind of thing. The otherizing, the fear. There's the 14 characteristics of fascism, which I posted in other videos. I might pop it up here again, but you can check that out. Just look up the 14 characteristics of fascism, and he's displaying, or America, the United States, has been displaying for some time to some degree, and now I think we'll see just a full-on push that way. And it's not surprising that it's going that way either, because I think the establishment, the powers that be, the oligarchy, they can see that due to the climate crisis that things are looking kind of grim. And they're probably just like a monopoly, they want to own everything. So now's the time to make that big push and just grab it. And if that means just pushing the United States into a full-on fascist sort of a state, that's just fine. Because why not, really? I think it's really kind of coming to that point now. They don't care who is destitute anymore. It's not just about brown and black people and minority groups. They don't care whether you're a white person or who the hell, they don't care. And that's being very clearly shown in the way the Democratic Party and the GOP, the duopoly, the one big war party, it's been shown very clearly they do not give a toss about the public, the way they have both handled this pandemic, the financial recovery. They don't care. So they're quite happy to see they don't want to give them Medicare for all. They're talking about giving people legal help if they get evicted rather than actually preventing evictions. This is how nuts it is there. And I mean, we're not so great here, but it's not as bad as yet as how they're handling this support of the public, which governments are supposed to be doing. They're not there to be serving the corporations, but that's what they're doing in the United States. They serve the corporations, and then the people are an afterthought. It doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, except if you're very, very, very wealthy. So anyway, I've gotten off the track here, but so QAnon is kind of a lightning rod for the disenfranchised alt-right white nationalists, the white supremacists. If Trump doesn't win, which is possible, but I actually do not count him out whatsoever. I actually think that he'll probably end up winning, because look at the alternative, really. And a week in politics is a very long time. A few months is a sort of, a life. It's many lifetimes in politics. So anything could happen between now and the general election. And if he doesn't win, it's going to be really, I think, really crazy and scary. And the disenfranchised, the deplorables, as Hillary Clinton put it, they're not going to, because the Democratic Party has done nothing for them, and that's why one of the main reasons why we've ended up with Trump, because there's no alternative. Those people it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. So anyway, I'm going to play these two excerpts. They're just opinion about QAnon and what it really means and why we should be concerned. And that's by Eric Draitser, the first one, and then Robbie Martin, the second. So I hope you find them interesting. And Robbie Martin has done a massive couple of Media Roots radio episodes. There's about 2 or 3 hours, probably 4 hours even, of QAnon. I haven't listened to the second one yet. That's on his Patreon, I think, account. I haven't listened to that yet, but I've listened to most of the first part, and it's very interesting, and he always gives very sort of informed, he does a lot of research, so it's worthwhile checking out Robbie Martin's Media Roots Radio just in general, Bobby Martin and Robbie Martin's Media Roots Radio, but this particular thing about QAnon, if you're interested in that particular topic and why we should be concerned. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please stay tuned to hear these two excerpts.
Oh boy, I shudder to even talk about this one, but I think it's worth describing. There was a fairly large rally in Los Angeles. I saw videos of it on Twitter. Fairly large rally that, well, what can you say? It's a QAnon rally. I mean, it is a QAnon rally. It is supposedly against pedophilia, but really it's a QAnon New World Order, Alex Jones world type of protest. I don't care about, what people are watching or whatever when it exists on the fringes or whatever. What the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because the way that this is dovetailing with the far right, with the militia movements, these things are gradually and maybe not so gradually coming together. The Pizzagate, QAnon, cult, all of that is gradually going to merge in with the 3%ers and the Oath Keepers and all of this militia stuff. And we're going to see the full formation of a modern, contemporary fascist political force in the United States. I don't know that it takes that long, maybe 2028, maybe 2024. I would expect in the next few years, we're going to see that. You watch. These militia people are going to gradually begin, or rather the line is going to begin to blur between QAnon cult freaks and, AR-15 carrying militia members. That line will blur. They will become one and the same. And when that happens, we're going to have a very serious political problem on our hands, one that even by today's standards seems almost unthinkable. And yet that's coming. And I think that we really need to think about it. QAnon, this stuff, this is not a joke. This is not something to simply laugh off, because this thing will morph. That's a guarantee. It will morph, and it will morph into something much more extreme and much more violent. So we definitely need to pay attention to that. Trish, is QAnon just a CIA psyops? I don't know. I saw Doug Valentine, who is well regarded as a CIA researcher, well regarded by many, maybe not all, as a CIA researcher. I happen to like a lot of Doug's work. I know that he said that based on his research, it seems to smell of a CIA operation. I have no research of my own to back that up, so I can't say yes or no to that. I know that that's what he said. I think that what we definitely know is that QAnon is a sort of a loose and informal online network that is definitely being controlled by Trumpist forces. If you believe some of the reports, Mike Flynn might be one of the high-ranking people involved in orchestrating this. He's supposedly been seen taking the QAnon oath, whatever the hell cult bullshit that is. Does that mean that Flynn is involved in orchestrating QAnon? I have no idea, but Flynn was very high up and in the intelligence, in the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. He's connected to very unsavory characters within the intelligence community. He's certainly loyal to Trump and loyal to this sort of fascist Trump network that has infested these already degenerate institutions. So yeah, it's quite possible. It's quite possible that this is sort of a rogue network within the U.S. intelligence community. I think that's also possible. And it's possible that it's something else that we don't fully understand. It could be foreign in nature. I would be inclined, if you ask me, you put a gun to my head and say, I would be inclined to think it's an intelligence operation. But, I have no way of knowing that. What I do know is that openly and overtly on a very surface level, this is a fascist cult. This is a fascist cult developing, and this is the rudiments of a fascist movement when you combine it with some of the other forces. And let's not even talk about how many millions of disaffected Trumpists are going to be if Biden wins this election. They're going to look for a home too, and they're going to get crazier and crazier. You can believe that.
And my own research about Q and what I've discovered about it, and how some of my views on Q may differ from some of the other people who analyze Q. The QAnon narrative is a very, very popular, pretty much mainstream conspiracy theory right now. And I normally hate that term conspiracy theory. I don't usually use it as a disparaging term. I'm just calling it is a conspiracy theory. I don't really know how else to describe it. But this conspiracy theory has attracted the attention of millions of people all across the world. It is not just an American conspiracy theory. It has gone global. And in a nutshell, what the narrative is that Donald Trump is here as president to stop the deep state, this deep state cabal that has taken over the country. And he's here to correct things and set America back on course. And to do so, he needs to essentially expose and take down a group of elite, satanic, deep state child sex traffickers, and also people who all are interested in taking down the United States. So it's a mixture of Donald Trump is here to save us from the deep state who's here to take down the United States, and also elites who engage in child sex trafficking and pedophilia, and a mixture of the two. And also oligarchs like George Soros and others who are also trying to take down Trump. Now, the QAnon narrative extends much further than that and also implies that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all of these Clinton loyalists and prominent Democrats, and even some sort of blue dog Republicans who've gone against Trump are going to be exposed eventually and taken down by the Justice Department in a giant roundup. And all these people are going to basically be frog marched, to use Tucker Carlson's words, into Guantanamo Bay. That there's going to be this big unveiling that Trump is going to announce someday, or the Justice Department is going to announce someday, that all these people, including Hillary Clinton, are going to be actually locked up in jail for engaging in child sex trafficking or corruption with the Clinton Foundation, or a mixture of the two. Now, that's actually a really boiled down version of the QAnon narrative. There are so many more aspects to it, and QAnon believers, since the original iteration of that narrative, now believe such crazy things that it's pretty much impossible to cover all of the different things that QAnon believers believe and that QAnon has put out as an individual or as a group of people, whoever is posting as QAnon, in terms of what narratives they're putting out as well. Because there's a difference between the things that this poster known as QAnon will put out and that what the followers will actually believe. So first, let me back up. That's what the QAnon narrative is. Now, who is QAnon? Is QAnon a person? Is it an individual? Is it a group? Why? How are people getting this information? How is this information being distributed? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the internet forum 4chan. And essentially, it's a person or group of people posing as someone with high-level security clearance, Q-level clearance, which is apparently the highest level of security clearance in the United States government. And this person is leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, and that's how they themselves have described it, to lead people in the direction to help basically create an army of patriots and to wake people up to help Trump fight the deep state and to bring upon the storm. You may ask, how did this person gain any credibility if it's just an anonymous person on 4chan like all the accounts are? Well, I'm going to explain to you later into the podcast how this person gained credibility, or how this group of people gained credibility using this anonymous 4chan account called Q and claiming to be a government insider close to Trump. Now, up front, I will say that the QAnon narrative, to me, is false. I don't subscribe to it. I think it's bullshit. I think it's basically designed, by design, manufactured to absolve Trump of everything and to interpret every weird mistake he makes or everything he does in some sort of special way, coded way, that he's actually doing good things. So, while he's doing all these things to seemingly fuck up and make all these mistakes, in the background, QAnon will keep telling people to pay attention to all these secret sealed indictments that I guess the Justice Department has something like over 3,000 sealed indictments ready to go, which, according to QAnon followers, is a huge unprecedented thing, which has never happened before. And to them, that's basically proof that Hillary Clinton and all these other people have already been indicted with these sealed indictments, and they're going to be unsealed eventually, and everybody's going to go down. What I believe QAnon is, or what I think of it, throughout this podcast, I'll be giving you my opinions on it and how I interpret it. And I actually don't believe that all of it is completely a LARP, meaning a live action role play. That's something that, a lot of the smarter people who analyze this think that it's completely a LARP, that it's made up by some pranksters leading all these crazy people who are essentially arguably have become mentally unstable, with carrot on a stick approach, with all these breadcrumbs, leading them down this weird path as a prank, as a LARP. My belief is that actually even if it is a LARP, that something about it is actually connected to the Trump administration. And I know that's going to sound strange, but I believe whoever is doing this actually has some connection in some form to the Trump administration. Even if everything they're saying is false or half-truths, and the person is making most of it up. There's something about it that does appear to actually have some connection to the Trump campaign and people close to Trump. But I believe QAnon is telling lies and is actually trying to dangerously divide the country, and in some ways actually trying to create a civil war like scenario, which if you think it's just a LARP, yeah, that's crazy that some LARPer person could get all these people maybe riled up enough to think they might be able to start a civil war. But to me, it's actually even scarier if you think about it in the sense that if this is something that Trump is trying to manipulate or use to his advantage, or that his administration is trying to use to his advantage, or even intelligence agencies are trying to use to their advantage, like the CIA, then it really puts a whole new scary spin on this, where it could be used to manipulate the public in some kind of sleeper cell activated brown shirt force, essentially by someone inside the US government, using conspiracy culture as a tool and as a means to basically essentially brainwash people into this cult to be activated and do whatever they're told for Donald Trump, because he's eventually going to fight and take down all of the deep state. Now, one thing you often hear Q supporters say, and Q himself has said, because Q has a lot of his own rhetoric, the breadcrumbs, follow the breadcrumbs, the storm is coming. One of the other things he often says is trust the plan. So that basically absolves Trump of anything. No matter what Trump does, as long as you trust the plan, things are going to be okay. Trust that Trump is going to take down the deep state, and let go of all your fears that he's, this strangeness with Epstein, because on some level, that's actually Trump, getting close to keeping his enemies close. That's a really interesting, fascinating thing about this is pretty much QAnon has convinced a ton of people that all Democrats are pedophiles. Now, we already know that Trump and Clinton went really deep with Epstein. We know that Trump probably has committed sexual assaults. We know that Trump has some bizarre, unfiltered nature where he talks about sex with really young women or even underage women, or allusions to it. What I think Q is, it could be a whole lot of different things. But one thing that comes up for me of what it could be is it could just be a way of, absolving Trump, not just politically, but even criminally, in the minds of the American public, in the minds of his supporters, in terms of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But that's just a side note. I don't think that that's what it's mainly devised to do. But I keep going back to that idea because Pizzagate, and the way that it was used, also did create a lot of disinterest and lack of interest in people actually exploring Trump's connections to Epstein and sex with underage women, which is notable that Pizzagate and QAnon have largely taken the focus away from that. Even though the connections are undeniable. Look at Whitney Webb's research, for example. We even know that Trump's ex-wife used to hang out with Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's underage sex recruiter, and pick up girls at high schools with her. So that's pretty much the intro to what I'm going to talk about today. So let's just get right the hell into it.